Good evening and a warm welcome to our online event, The Art of Woodblock Printing. This program accompanies the British Museum's exhibition, Hiroshige, Artist of the Open Road, on view until 7th of September. My name is Ryōko Matsuba, and I'm a professor at Ritsumeikan University in Kyoto, Japan. Because I'm speaking from Kyoto, it is now 1:30 in the morning here, but I'm delighted to be with you, our audience, and our two panelists. Tonight, we are joined by David Wu, a traditional woodblock printmaker based in Tokyo, who will explain the technical side of Japanese printmaking. Okay. And Abe Koya, a Japanese artist based in New York City who blends traditional printmaking with pioneering digital techniques. Each panelist will speak for 15 minutes, after which we will have the discussion. We will finish by taking questions from the audience. First, I will give a short presentation. In today's talk, I will examine how perceptions of the Japanese landscape evolved and how Hiroshige, along with the wider culture of popular prints, helped to shape that transformation. Here we see a memorial portrait of Utagawa Hiroshige, designed by Toyokuni III, better known as Kunisada, and published shortly after Hiroshige's sudden death at the age of 60. The accompanying inscription recalls two earlier masters of the Utagawa school, Toyoharu and Toyohiro. Although Toyoharu possibly never taught Hiroshige directly, he is mentioned because of his pioneering landscape prints, the very rare genre in which Hiroshige would earn enduring fame. Toyohiro, by contrast, was Hiroshige's former master. He bestowed on his pupil the character Hiro and was renowned for his illustrated books and a small number of landscape designs. From the late 18th century, the Utagawa school was best known for kabuki actor portraits. Yet Toyoharu, Toyohiro, and above all, Hiroshige turned their gaze to the natural world, consistently preferred landscape views to the drama of the stage. Although landscape are now among the best-known subjects of ukiyo-e, they are not the commercial mainstay of trade in early modern Japan. The ukiyo-e scholar Akama Ryo estimates that actor portraits made up roughly 60% of all prints sold. Two landscape series, nevertheless, rose to global fame. The first is Katsushika Hokusai's 36 Views of Mount Fuji, with its separate Great Wave and Red Fuji. The second is Utagawa Hiroshige's 53 Stations of the Tokaido, several impressions of which we can see in the British Museum exhibition today. Few people realize that Hokusai created his Mount Fuji series only in the early 1830s when he was already in his 70s and had rarely tackled the genre before. Hiroshige followed almost immediately, issuing his first Tokaido edition in 1833 to 34, soon after Hokusai's print appeared. This abrupt walk through landscape in the 1830s transformed the reputation of ukiyo-e at home and abroad for decades to come. How did a genre that had long been minority taste suddenly move to center stage? In order to consider this question, I'd like to explore the development of the depiction of Japanese landscape in the early modern period. The large format screen was one of the media used for representing Japanese landscapes, especially views of cities, even before the early modern period, that is before 1600s. A screen not only provides the background for a living space, but provides viewers with an immersive experience, inviting them to engage with the space depicted. Such depiction may be described as immersive landscapes. In them, the viewers are made to feel that they can connect the space depicted, that they are part of the scene before them. Until 1810s, popular landscape prints were usually described as ukiyo-e. Ukiyo-e can be translated as perspective pictures and were introduced into Japanese popular print culture around 1740s, inspired by imported European paintings, manuals, and prints. In the early 18th century, the popular print artist Okumura Masanobu called himself the inventor of ukiyo-e. This print represents a pleasure pavilion near Ryogoku Bridge. As you see, Masanobu depicts indoor scenes within the framework provided by the structure of the building. Three concentric square frames joined by cross beams create the illusion of dips of recession into space. Such frames played a crucial role in the construction of perspective views. Ukiyo-e were closely linked to megane, literally glasses pictures, also known as nozoki-e or peeping pictures, which were viewed through small optical boxes. Art historians Okubo Junichi and Times Bridge has shown that ukiyo-e were often mounted inside these devices. The lens enlarged and deepened the image so that the spectacular felt as if they are stepping into the scene. In this way, inexpensive popular print could deliver the same immersive experience that in earlier centuries only large and costly folding screen could provide. Here we see a perspective print on ukiyo-e by Utagawa Toyoharu, titled Views of People Enjoying the Evening Pool at Ryogoku Bridge. Although the artist depicts the same location as Masanobu, he does not use architectural framing to create a sense of this. Instead, he opens the view directly onto the scene itself. This marks a clear shift in the portrayal of landscape, moving away from theatrical stage, like setting toward a more observational and objective approach. Toyoharu produced a copy of the Western copperplate print in the woodblock printed format. As you see here, he reproduced a print of an imaginary views of Rome by the English artist William Austin, which was itself based on a large oil painting by the Italian artist Panini. While Toyoharu had mastered Western perspective, by no longer relying on an obvious framework, the image no longer provides the viewer with an immersive space. Instead, the viewer is placed in the position of observing the landscape. Both Masanobu and Toyoharu use the same technique, ukiyo-e, perspective, to depict landscapes. However, Masanobu aimed to realize in print a pre-existing ideal of offering the viewer an immersive experience, whereas Toyoharu cut the viewers off from the scene. The viewers stand outside of the picture, looking at and observing the scenery in front of them. When Toyoharu removed the obvious architectural framing from his ukiyo-e, we can see that, in the truest sense, this Japanese popular print artist had internalized Western perspective, presenting observed landscapes in woodblock printed form. Utagawa Toyohiro, Hiroshige's former master, inherited Toyoharu's observational approach to landscape. As you can see here, the clouds are colored red. The scholar Sakamoto Mitsuru had noted that these colored clouds clearly reveal Western influence from 16th century optic painting, and that this method of depiction later became standard in ukiyo-e. Like his teacher Toyohiro portrayed landscape that incorporate ideas from the West. About 30 years after Toyohiro published his views of Ryogoku Bridge, around 1831, Utagawa Hiroshige depicted the same bridge. This sheet is among the earliest design in Hiroshige's landscape series. Hiroshige's perspective is entirely different from Toyoharu's ukiyo-e. A close-up of the bridge and the structure fills most of the composition. Its beams framing the scene. The viewer looks up at the moon from beneath the span. Hiroshige used the same compositional device in a small format print titled Evening Sun at Ryogoku Bridge, issued at about the same times and shown on the right. He also produced a similar smaller format views of the bridge in more conventional style, probably published slightly earlier, which appears on the left. The key difference is that the right sheet carries a haiku poem on Ryogoku Bridge by Hachijinte, a poet who often collaborates with Hiroshige, whereas the left-hand sheet does not. The poem said, 橋の上、人かき分けて覗き蹴り、からくり花火あぐる両国。On the bridge, shouldering through the crowd, I lean to gaze. Ryogoku hoist its clockwork flowers of flame by Hachijinte. This poem also appears Hiroshige Tanzaku format prints. A tanzaku is a tall, narrower sheet traditionally used for recording poems by poetry gathering, and Hiroshige favored it for his nature subject. Although the poem described a scene on the beach, Kashinoue, Hiroshige instead shows a close-up view from beneath Ryogoku Bridge. Later in the 1850s, Hiroshige employed the same device on once more for views of Ryogoku Bridge. The sheet on the left is a fan print, while the one on the right is a smaller format print. Both compositions capture bustling scenes as if the viewers had snipped out a slice of everyday life at the bridge. This close-up treatment offers a different kind of immersive experience, creating feeling of being there through the motif of the bridge seen at close quarters. The bridge itself serves as the frame, drawing the viewers directly into the scene. This composition was not newly invented by Hiroshige. In fact, in the late 18th century, the Edo artist Kawamura Minsetsu already used this view in his illustrated book, 100 Mount Fuji, published in 1767. Minsetsu depicted 100 different views of Mount Fuji, each accompanied by haiku poem. Since each view is closely connected to its poems. Our appreciation of the scene is his four-volume book is enhanced. The words help filling in the image. They add color to the line-only illustrations. The poem enhanced our understanding of the season, time of day, even temperature of the scene depicted by Misetsu. Later, Misetsu's 100 Views of Mount Fuji inspired Katsushika Hokusai's European-style prints published in the early 1800s, and his celebrated series, 36 Views of Mount Fuji. However, Hiroshige used the under the bridge composition most effectively to draw viewers into the scene. When audience saw these prints, they could see vivid activity at the site. Even though the artist did not depict every detail with photographic realism, the essential link between location and spectator is each viewer's own emotional memory and experience, which enables a personal response to Hiroshige's landscape. With this print, for example, every viewer will interpret it differently. Some feel the evening breeze, others the humid twilight by the riverside in summer, still others the texture of wooden bridge long exposed to the element. Each experiences a distinct emotion on viewing the picture. The posthumous popularity of prints by Hokusai and Hiroshige is clear from the expanding international market for their work in the late 19th century. Foreign audiences were most attracted to the large format single-sheet landscape series. Every depiction of Japanese landscapes in popular single-sheet prints were strongly influenced by Western techniques and compositions. Once print artists learned to express emotion, however, viewers responded to the feeling evoked rather than the scene's material details alone. Most overseas admirers had really seen the actual Japanese places shown. What moved them was the emotional force of these landscapes, the way they capture the moment, combining time of day, weather and season. These are universal experiences. For this reason, Hiroshige's landscape series continue to attract attention and admiration around the world today. Thanks so much for your attention. And next, okay, so close is my slide. Next, I'd like to welcome Dave and ask him a few questions about his day-to-day work in Japanese printmaking. Hello, Dave.
Yes, thank you for asking me to come today.
Okay, great. So I'm just asking for my first question about publishing model, if I could, okay. Your workshop functions as a full woodblock publisher rather than simply a retail shop. How does your workflow from commissioning design to wood cutting, printing, and marketing compare with the Hamoto publisher system in the early modern period, Edo period?
You told me I only had 15 minutes. That's going to need 2 hours to answer that one. Okay. I'm not sure how many of our viewers here understand actually what you're asking. You mentioned the word Hanmoto there. This is the name of the person who is the director of the whole activity of making a group of woodblock prints, what we would call the publisher. The analogy is perhaps best made with something like making movies in the West. Somebody, the director or producer, has an idea about what to be done, but he himself doesn't have all the skill sets. He gathers together people that know how to use cameras, people that know how to use microphones, actors to read their lines, people to write scripts. He brings all these things together with a vision, and then at the end of the day, we have this thing called a movie. Back in the Edo period, there were no movies, of course. All information flow going out from creators to the world was done through woodblock prints. And he did this job. He was the kantoku, the director who put all the things together to put it out into the world. And here today in modern Tokyo, I'm trying to replicate that same thing. Now, I've got a lot of competition. There's movies, there's everything else all around the world putting information out into the world, but I'm trying to do the same thing, to make a stream of information from a few designers who are going to create interesting products, going through all the steps of the process, coordinating the physical process necessary, the wood carving, the printing, you mentioned the marketing, putting it all together and getting it out into the world. And I'm a little bit proud to feel that we're actually here in 2025 able to be a Hamoto in the same extent that the famous Tsutoya Zaburo was back in whenever he was working, 1775.
Thank you so much. That's really interesting to create that sort of like a sense of Hamoto in Tokyo nowadays in Japan. And my next question about, especially I'm really interested in some technical aspects like modern tools versus Edo early modern tools. Which contemporary technologies, for example, computer-aided layout, laser cut stencil, synthetic pigment, or power sharpness, have you adopted? And how does that change the way blocks are cut or impressions are pulled?
Okay, that's a big list here. Let me try and the main thrust of your question, I guess, is how much are we using modern technology to make the prints these days? The value that we're creating in the world is coming from the fact that we are choosing to do it for the most part using as much as we can the old techniques. These days, the world is so full of robots and machines and modern printing that if we use those things for our work, we're not bringing any value to the table. What the people who are collecting our work wants to see and wants to feel is the very low tech but high touch of the work. So we use pretty much, I can't say we don't use anything. We do use a computer. For example, the series we're making right now, it's being created by designers in France. And they can't sit here and draw little pieces on our woodblocks to do things. So they're creating their images over in France using actual physical brushes and paper, then scanning it into a computer, using the internet to get it to me. And then at this point, we print it out on thin paper. And from there on, it goes on the wood, and we're using pretty much nothing but the old techniques. So I can't deny that we are using modern technology as part of our work, but we never use it in a way that would affect the look and feel and taste of the finished print. Having them send it to me across the internet is irrelevant, because once it goes on the finished block, it's the man and the knife and the wood, and away we go. And there's no computer involved at that point. We do a little bit of things. We've adapted some of the materials. For example, in the old days, the cherry wood was a solid piece of cherry wood. There was very high quality wood available in those days, and it was very stable and useful for the work. We can't get such good wood these days because the supply chains have all crumbled over the decades. So we would take a piece of cherry, and rather than use it as a thick piece, we'll slice it up and put it on a plywood core. It won't warp as much. It won't stretch and shrink and expand as much. But from the point of view of the paper and the pigment and the wood, nothing is different. So our core rule is this: we wouldn't use any technology that changes the look and feel of the beautiful finished print that we want to deliver to the world.
Thank you so much. So I just wanted to ask about the like material, like traditional materials you mentioned, like cherry wood. Like conversely, what technical challenges are harder today, such as sourcing fine grade cherry wood, like you said, and handmade washi or skilled wood cutters? And how do you compensate for those shortages?
Oh my God. I can just sort of hang myself now and put an end to my life right now because the supply chain has disappeared. It's completely gone. You would know, you're an academic researcher, you would know numbers better than I do, but how many workshops were present in the Edo period? How many people made a living doing the carving? How many people made a living doing the printing? The numbers were vast. There were hundreds of workshops, hundreds of carvers, thousands of printers. It was the printing business back in the old days. So it was the only way for information to be communicated among society. And as a result of the large number of workshops, the supply chain was vast. They could pick up, well, they couldn't pick up the phone. They could go down to the local wood supplier and choose the kind of wood they wanted. Now we have none of that. It has all gone. The last man, the last craftsman who dedicated his work, who was a professional block producer, he died in 1999, Shimano Shintaro. Since that day, we've been trying to, we ourselves, we send teams out into the mountains to try and find trees, chop them up, bring them back, dry pieces. We're totally, what's the word they use in the modern, we're vertically integrated. We work from mountain and the fields where they grow the mulberry right all the way up to the things that we send to the customers. And it's a huge, huge, huge problem for us because we're scrambling. We get a piece of wood. We don't have any choice about the wood. All we can use is whatever we get. So it's our biggest problem. And it's really kind of an existential problem for us. If we can't get this under control better, we're doomed.
Well, how about use washi paper? You think like some sort of washi is a really main material for your printmaking. How this?
I'm glad you asked me this one because in that one area we do see some light now. I can't talk too much about this. It takes so long. Quickly, if you go back for the last 10, 20, 30 years, it's been one family in the papermaking area up in Fukui Prefecture that has supplied 99% of all the paper for high quality Japanese prints. But it turns out the grandchildren of that family do not want to continue with it. Now, seeing this some years back, I have been casting around trying to identify people who could maybe take up the slack here. And long story short, we now are sponsoring ourselves at Mokuhankan. We are sponsoring a young lady who has extensive experience in making paper to set up an alternative workshop to this long family who we've been using. They're actually friends. There's no competition and trouble going on here. These people know each other. We're simply getting her established in the work so that when they eventually disappear, hopefully she will be ready. It's a very, very bright spot for us in a very gloomy overall situation.
That's great news among that bit like sad news for the blood materials. And I'd like to ask you your experience to recreating hokusai, like block ready drawings for the prints for the British Museum.
Last year's project.
When you produced new impressions from hokusai's original block ready drawings, what were the key technical decisions like paper, pigment, recipes, block registration that determine
none of that stuff. The key point here. Okay. When you look at what's been happening, say for the last 100 years or say, for example, there's been no new ukiyo-e being published. All the places in Tokyo here, the Takamizawa, Adachi Company, Yujudo, whatever, they've made their living for decades now, certainly in the post-war period, making reproductions of the old ukiyo-e. They carve the Great Wave, they carve with Tomato Beauties, whatever, the kind of prints that we've all seen and loved. So all the carvers, the men who I've met, the men I learned from, the men who have been in the post-war period, they've been making reproductions of old prints, which means as the master copy, they take a print that's already been carved once by a carver back in Hokusai's day or by Hiroshige's day. But back in that day, when the carvers were working on the original Hiroshige or Hokusai work, they weren't working from a woodblock print, they were working from a sketch. But the modern carvers, the men I knew here, they've never in their lives done that. So we, myself and the other carvers on our team here, have enjoyed and have been challenged by working directly from Hokusai's original drawings, something that none of the other men alive on this planet have ever had a chance to do. And this has been a glorious opportunity for us. Oh my God, I'm making an original Hokusai print. And it's been a terrifying challenge for us. Every line I've carved, mean, he's watching. He's watching. You know, I mean, how am I going to do a good job here? Because we all know from the correspondence that's left, Hokusai was extremely strict. He left letters saying, never use that carver again. I want you to use Egawa Tomokichi because he's the only man who understands how I do noses and stuff like this. So it's been absolutely terrifying. How did we do? Whatever. You've got the 12 prints there in your museum. Posterity will judge us. Who knows?
Thank you so much. And the last question from me about future. How do you recruit and train woodcutters and printers today? And what specific experience or benchmarks must an apprentice master before joining the professional production team?
Okay, well, I actually, you've asked me questions I could answer, and this question I can't answer. It's a paradoxical situation for us. We are at the moment stunningly short of workers, craftsmen. There's huge global demand for what we're making. We're selling out everything we make, but we cannot find people to do this work. There's a paradox involved in the woodblock printmaking. You've got a stack of 200 sheets of paper, maybe 12 colors in this print. There we go. Color number 1 on sheet number 1. Color number 2 on sheet number 2. Color number 3 on sheet number 3. 200 copies, do it again. 200 copies, do it again. It seems like the most boring, terrible, robotic, insane, inhuman work on this planet. And it can be sometimes, but it has to be done with vivid concentration. How am I doing? Am I doing well? There's a problem. How to solve this problem? It needs both a vigorous intellect and a severe concentration, but at the same time, it requires you to become a mindless robot and do the same thing again and again and again and again and again and again and again. And young people these days, I'm going to get killed for what I say here. I'm sorry. Young people these days, all they know how to do again and again and again is scroll on a smartphone. We've done something to human brains now, and people cannot sit down at a bench and do repetitive work. And I'm very, very much afraid that I'm not going to be able to find enough crazy people. I'm crazy. I've stuck with this for 50 years. Young Taran-san from Wales working with us, he's totally, absolutely crazy. He's determined to become the best carver on this planet, and he won't give up until he gets there. But it's not so easy to find crazy people. If there's anybody out there listening to this who thinks you're crazy enough, give me a call. Let's see if we can do something together.
Well, thank you. That's a really great message for the audience. I'm really hoping to continue that sort of like traditional practice, or if I can say traditional, for the future. But this is a good time to end our conversation. Thank you so much, Dave.
Thank you. Okay.
And next, I would like to hand it over to Abe Koya-san for his presentation, Hiroshige's Window. Koya-san.
Thank you very much. I must be another crazy person here, I guess. But first of all, thank you to the British Museum for inviting me to this great event. And thank you to everyone who had helped to make this happen. My name is Koya Abe. I'm a Japanese artist, but I have lived and worked in New York City since early 90s. For today, I have thought about my personal and artistic relationship with ukiyo-e, specifically with Hiroshige in mind. To make it easier, I divided the presentation into 3 parts, and I hope this is helpful. Part 1, my background as an artist and the emergence of digital technology. Early 1990s, I was a graduate student in New York City. I was part of very progressive photography art program, so I did many new things, and digital technology was one of them. This is the environment I was in early 1990s. It was very primitive environment. Digital technology was very promising, and without a doubt, that is great technology. However, digital technology is also very limited at that time. There was trial and error a lot. And eventually I coming down to one question for this. How I could work with digital technology on the context of contemporary art. I didn't have an answer for it at that time. And this question has been stayed in my mind for a while. Part 2, the parallels of photography, digital image, and ukiyo-e. After I graduated grad school, one day, I just remember ukiyo-e lecture. The ukiyo-e lecture title was, Why Did Ukiyo-e Suddenly Disappear from Japan? This was an interesting lecture, and I was told at that time, perhaps Western painting just took over ukiyo-e, or ukiyo-e was too antiquated at that time. However, his answer was very different. His answer was ukiyo-e was photography in Japan. I was a little bit confused at that time, but I had come to understand. This is some of the sample images. This is on the left side is Japanese old newspaper with ukiyo-e image, and this is crime reporting image. This is fashion and style. So this is sort of Japanese fashion magazine, like portrait and publicity. Basically, this is like celebrities' photography. And landscape. On the left side is Hiroshige's landscape image, and the right side is Ansel Adams' landscape image. They are very similar, aren't they? This is entertainment and performance images. On the left side, Kabuki Theater image. On the right side is Carnegie Hall image in New York City. So basically, the new photography from the West functionally replaced ukiyo-e in Japan. When I thought about this ukiyo-e lecture, suddenly Hiroshige's window image came to my mind, out of blue. This is the image I had in my mind. When I had this image in my mind, I just thought about what Hiroshige was thinking about this window, or what Hiroshige wanted to see through this window. And then simultaneously, Impression Sunlight by Monet came to my mind without the context. So I just thought, I could do something about that. And I did it. This is the artwork I made it early 1990s. When I made this image, I feel something clicked. And I feel finally I find some answer for how I could work with digital technology on the context of contemporary art. I could see ukiyo-e here, I could see painting here, I could see photography here, I could see sculptures here, and of course I can see rising sun. So every element were blended by digital technology. It was my aha moment. So after I made that image, I thought about the history. 19th century, photography and the emergence of ukiyo-e changed the course of art history in Europe. And if ukiyo-e was photography, and then two distinct photography changed the course of art history. And then actually not only one, two photography has changed the course of art history. Then digital imaging must be third type of the photography to change the course of art history within my lifetime. It was quite interesting realization to me. Since then, I have been exploring the concept of the photography itself as a contemporary Japanese artist in this framework. I have made a quite number of the artworks last 25 years. So I'd like to share some of sample images with audience. Duplication. You can see Great Wave image with Drowning Girl by Liechtenstein. Analogies. You can see Hiroshige's peacock image tattooed on grand odalisque. Aesthetics. I was thinking about Japanese aesthetics and Western aesthetics and their parallels. Display. You can see reporting in the modern kitchen. Actually, this kitchen is IKEA showroom kitchen. Seamless. I was thinking about the deception and photography and digital imaging and all of those parallels. Topology. You can see Van Gogh's sunflower image on the table of Cézanne. Kabuki. I was thinking about the ukiyo-e's influence over Picasso and their parallels. Part 3. Hiroshige's response to disaster in Edo and Hiroshige's influence on me. This is a great earthquake image, actually newspaper. You can see fire, you can see earthquake. This Ansei disaster was one of the historical disasters in Japan, and Hiroshige was in Edo, Tokyo, and he did a response to this disaster as 100 famous views of Edo. Those are images from the series, and obviously, you can see any sign of disaster here. It is my view that Hiroshige decided to be positive and rather to encourage people in Edo to recover very gracefully. This is another disaster, 2011 in Japan, Tohoku earthquake and the tsunami. I think still a lot of people can remember this disaster. Let me talk about a little bit my personal background. Before I moved to Tokyo and later New York City, I was grown up in Tohoku region. So obviously this was a very personal disaster. I can remember that day I called my mother, but I couldn't talk to my mother for a week. My family house was damaged and some of my relatives were missing. That was a very difficult time. I have a lot of friends down there. I have a lot of memories down there. As a Japanese artist, and specifically artists originally came from those areas, I feel I have to respond somehow. And I did it. I made anime series. And this is my response to the Tohoku earthquake, 2011. I made a total 26 artworks. And fortunately, all of the 26 artworks were collected by British Museum. So you can see all of the 26 works through British Museum website, if you like. So I'd like to introduce some of the image from the series. This artwork is based on Hiroshige's image. And this image is specifically showing right now at the British Museum Hiroshige show. So somebody might be familiar with this. This artwork is based on Hiroshige's work. This is specifically Hiroshige's Karuizawa image. This artwork is based on Hokusai's images. Fukagawa image. And this is image based on also Hokusai, Sano. When I heard about this disaster, first thing that came to my mind was Mount Fuji. Mount Fuji is not dead mountain, so technically anytime could erupt. I was anxious about Mount Fuji at that time. So full circle. My over 25 years, the project started with Hiroshige's window. And my animated series coincidentally paralleled Hiroshige's 100 famous views of Edo. And today I'm talking about the legacy of Hiroshige and some of my work. It is quite full circle to me. At the end, I'd like to thank you for audience, and I hope you can find some interesting story from my presentation. And I'd like to thank to Hiroshige specifically. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Abe-san. And I really, I'm a big fan of your animism prints, and it's quite great way of expressing the sorrow after the disaster. I hope you have the chance to see his work at the British Museum. Okay, so we already have a lot of questions in my chat box, and we try to cover as many as we can. So the first question, this is probably for Dave. Do you have to be crazy to be brilliant in printmaking? Didn't Hokusai say he was old man crazy to paint?
There's two very different things you're talking about here then. You're talking about the creativity. The Hokusai brought the crazy creativity. He created things that people hadn't seen before. You know, that's the artist side of it. But here at our workshop here, none of us are really artists. Our job is to take the crazy creativity part of it and physically make the product. I used the word crazy. It's a different kind of a process. We have to be the control freaks, the people to take that thing given to us by the designers and make sure it can be replicated once, twice, 100 times, 200 times, 1,000 times. It's a very different job from what Hokusai did, you know, creating from nothing and then replicating it honestly and faithfully for the people who will be looking at it.
Thank you. Next question. Great to see Ansel Adams' image. How did he come to see Hiroshige? This is for Koya-san, I think.
I don't think he saw Hiroshige's work. I just researched a little bit, but my research indicated not particularly. However, it doesn't mean Ansel Adams never see Hiroshige's work. Maybe not consciously or not kind of purposely, but however, something Hiroshige's image on the wall somewhere, something like that. That's a possibility. That's my feeling.
Thank you so much. Next question, we're going to Dave. How has the focus of the content of the information changed from Edo period to Meiji to present day from the perspective of the Hamoto?
Okay, another big question. I sort of touched on this a little bit earlier. In his day, if I take Taiji Zaburo as the example, he was really vitally important to his culture because he was one of the only ways that information was distributed. Remember, these days it's movies, magazines, books, you name it, videos, internet, YouTube, whatever. Back in his days, none of those things existed. I mean, the kabuki stage existed, but as far as information flow goes, he was it. And these days, I am irrelevant. I'm not a person who is important in the flow of information through society. So the kind of value we are bringing to society now, and that in the old days, really is a very different animal. He was, the ukiyo-e, I've written about this before, made videos about this. Ukiyo-e was a vital force for social change back then. I myself can't claim in any way that the work I'm doing is changing society. We are now an extra part of society. Society is rich and prosperous enough that people like me are sort of able to do our jobs at the edge of society. But I really can't claim the important core point that he did 200 years ago. I'm not sure I'd want that responsibility. I don't
No.
know.
Thank you. The next question we can answer some of those we can answer. So I'd be interested to know if woodblock techniques and types of images changed by region. And were there woodblock artists outside of Tokyo, Edo, and Kyoto? How do you think? Yeah.
You're really asking the wrong guy. I don't know much about that sort of history. I'm sorry. The focus of this guy here, I came to Japan, put my nose on the wood, and you asked me questions about wood and cutting and paper and how pigments blend. I've got you on that. But I really am not the person to ask about the details of ukiyo-e history and which man did that and which man did that and who worked in 1745. I just have to honestly say, I really don't know. I'm sorry.
Yeah, but there is few difference from like Edo and Osaka, the taste of the print they like during
Yes.
Edo period. And like regional kind of standard would be slightly changed.
Oh yeah, I thought you were asking. I mean, the difference between the Edo and Osaka were strong, very much. And even today, the printmakers working in the field, the people working in Osaka today, or Kansai, Kyoto, and the people working in Tokyo do very different styles to some extent. I thought you were talking about more different regions. To cleanly sort of try and isolate these two things, back from the old days, even until now, the Edo, Tokyo people are more populist, they are rougher. The Kyoto, Osaka people feel more sophisticated. They work more as, say, reproducing paintings with woodblock rather than making straight ukiyo-e prints. Very different culture. We look up upon them. I'm an Edo, a Tokyo guy. We look on them as being a little bit pretentious and sophisticated, very good at what they do, but they feel a little bit self-important. They look on us as being pretty low class. I think. I'm not supposed to talk about this. I don't know. You asked me.
Matsuba-san in Kyoto there.
In Kyoto now. I'm not originally from Kyoto. But I think there's any other printmakers outside of Tokyo and Osaka. It's printmaking is like main
all over the country. Yes, of course.
all over the country. But I think the two biggest difference like Tokyo and Osaka, and we can separate West and East as a style probably.
Yes.
Okay, I'll go on the next. Okay, then go next question. How well known was Katsushika Oi, Eijo, Hokusai's daughter? Were female ukiyo-e artists treated any differently? I think especially the Katsushika Oi is quite. Do you want to have any thoughts? Do you have any thoughts, Dave, about the female artist during Edo period?
I know next to nothing about this. I'm sorry. Again, there is much talk about her recently. She's been ignored through most of ukiyo-e history. Very little real data, very little real knowledge. What we do know is that, of course, she lived with her father, supported him quite a lot, and obviously had a hand in doing a fair amount of the work that was done in the studio. It wasn't just him. There was apprentices scattered around. They came and they went, and they came and they went. And she also, as far as we understand, had her hand in a part of the work. I don't have anything else, any knowledge about that. To sort of pick up your theme, though, to jump ahead a little bit, I can add something else. Our workshop here, the Mokohangan workshop in Tokyo, is the first and really strongly one of the only places here in this field to hire ladies, women, for the heavy printing work. All of our printers upstairs here, Ayumi-san, Ishikawa-san, and Dei-chan, all ladies, all doing full professional work. And this was unheard of when I first came to Japan. It was a man's job, a rough man's job. And we've shown them that women can do this.
Great. I think that's great. But I think for Oi, the Hokusai's daughter, she may have to, maybe have to her father late period, probably because Hokusai died at the age of 90, and around the later period, she may have her father, but we don't have any clear report. And I think I can say the female and male artists will be treated slightly differently at that time during Edo period. But I'm really glad to hear that not Dave's workshop wouldn't be a different approach toward that. But do you have any thoughts about female artists during Edo period, Koya-san?
No, I'm no. Oh.
Sorry.
Well,
do you see any difference or?
I don't have enough knowledge. However, it's interesting. Dave told us now, the woman artist does the printing process. Of course, ukiyo-e is carving, printing, painting part. So I'm wondering specifically, printing part attracts some way contemporary woman's interest. That a little bit, because printing part, like photography, printing and shooting is a very different deal. So I'm assuming ukiyo-e situations also mentality and the culture of the printing process, and also mentality of the carving process different. So I'm wondering some kind of contemporary woman that may attracted by those printing part specifically.
I think can I just mention about I met the female printer in Kyoto, and she said because her arm is very shorter than other male workers, and she has to adapt the setting at the beginning, and they try to change some traditional process because her physical ability isn't
This is
really
Hirai-san, sure? This is Hirai-san. So
but
good.
She's actually tiny. But now she's kind of like working quite hard for those sort of achievement.
Obviously, there's a physical aspect here. I know there is a power. Some very large, heavy-duty print may be more suitable for a man, even more muscular men than me. In our workshop, we have no trouble at all with the women because, honestly speaking, a lot of our work is fairly small scale. It's fairly detailed. It's fairly delicate. And these ladies really find this a very suitable kind of job for them. There's no physical heavy stresses for them. It's within range of their physical capabilities. And there's no question, of course, it's perfectly suited to their mental capabilities. It's just, it's a non-issue for us. We don't even talk about this here. I'm sorry. I'm surprised you brought it up because we don't even think about it.
I think we have 13 seconds for our conversation, but just last question. Why do you use cherry wood? What benefit does it have? Any alternatives would possible?
There's many kinds of wood in the world. If we're trying to replicate the look and feel of a print made 200 years ago on a specific type of wood, it really serves us to use that same kind of wood. If we try and change the base, the tools, the materials, we will end up with something different. Modern artists want to do that. We want the same beautiful look and feel of the old prints. So we'll stay with the same material.
Thank you so much. I think we still have a lot of good questions, but I'm sorry we haven't got the time today. So we have now reached the end of this evening lecture. Thank you once again to our panelists, Dave and Koya-san, and to everyone in the audience for your time and questions. If you have not yet seen the exhibition, Hiroshige, Artist of the Open Road, I do hope you will visit before it closes on 7th of September. Goodbye and good night from the British Museum. Thank you so much.